People of Reddit with security cameras, what is the creepiest thing you've caught on video? I have cameras in my house for my dogs that alert me when they bark and I can send them treats, etc. It basically functions as a security camera. Anyways, we went on a vacation and I warned our dog sitter in advance that we have cameras in common areas of the first floor of our home. One day during my trip, at 3 AM, I review my dog footage because I get an alert on my phone that my dogs are barking like crazy. I normally wouldn't creep, but I was concerned that maybe there was a fire or break-in, or the woman fell, etc. The footage shows a dog sitter, a 70-year-old lady, running around the house swearing at my dogs, in underwear only. My stepdad woke up one morning and found a bucket of fried chicken in our driveway. For some reason he didn't think it was odd at all. I didn't check our camera recordings. Ends up being this lady walked up to my car at like 3 AM with a bucket. She was obviously homeless and probably on drugs. When the camera light turned on, she yelled, "I brought you some chicken," and left the bucket on the ground by my car. To this day I wonder what was up with the chicken lady. My old apartment had incredibly unprofessional repair staff. I'd call them because my AC would be out, and they'd come over while I was at work, rather than at the agreed upon time while I was home, and they'd use my bathroom, poke around through my stuff, type on my keyboard, duck around with my pets, etc. Needless to say, I was pretty livid. I set up a camera and caught them, then took the footage to the front office. I got a personal call from the owner of the apartment complex to apologize, and almost the entire repair staff got fired. A neighbor walking by, which he does every day, and realizing the cameras were being installed, CCTV van, etc. Next day, on his walk by, he stands still and just looks at the camera. Could understand him looking for a few seconds to see how they were wired, what brand, what they might be able to see, etc. But he stood there, just looking at a single camera, for about 14 minutes. At work, the IT guy reviews our restaurant security videos. One day he calls me and tells me to open his email to me and to close my office door. The first part of the video shows the restaurant manager opening up the restaurant after hours, 1 AM, to let a woman in. Next clip they are the manager's office having sex. Next clip shows them drinking liquor straight out the bottles. Then they start arguing and the manager drags the woman down the stairs and throws her out of the restaurant. OMG. The manager was obviously fired. The woman later claimed the manager raped her. IT turned over unredacted and unedited to the police, and I don't recall if the abuse charges against manager were upheld. Worked in one of the oldest buildings in my college town. Was once a Wild West saloon where 2 people were documented to be killed in a shootout when the state was still a territory. In the 20s it served as someone's house, where the youngest daughter was documented to have died in childhood. When I got hired on, even the owners talked about it being haunted. I've never truly seen a ghost or had an encounter, but something about the building, particularly the office to the back and definitely the dirt basement, did not feel right to me at all. Not malevolent, but always off. My first closing shift after I get promoted to key holder. I'm also helping a new girl who has really taken the whole ghost spiel she got a few days prior to heart. This particular store ranged from small little treasures that were almost too easy not to steal, to a few items that cost 5x the going rate for tuition at the local college. Naturally, the owners had 15 cameras installed that played on a live feed in the office and in the storefronts for customers to see to know they weren't being slick. I'm counting the drawer and she's anxiously watching the security camera, just waiting to see something crazy. I'm putting the final totals into a calculator and she screams. She calls me over to the camera feed, and there it is on the top right feed. Very clearly there is what looks like a figure in a white, boxy nightgown type dress. We are both near pissing our pants, but we can't leave. There's still a bunch of stuff to get done and the owners and the opener tomorrow will be pissed if we just ditch the last half of the closing responsibilities on account of a ghost. We watch it, stunned as it appears to sway. Suddenly, a huge spider obscures the view of the figure. We, 2 grown women, have been near tears for what feels like ages because we've been watching a ducking spider web that the AC blew into view of the camera. My ex-wife sneaking up to the front door and peeking in the window. At 10 PM one night, right after divorce was final, probably a full 4 minutes worth, ordered 3 more cameras from Amazon that night. I was looking for a lost calf out in the woods one night and found a game camera I didn't recognize on the property. It got a few pictures of me. It was my boss's friend and she had forgotten to tell me. My boss had a good laugh when a friend checked his camera and nervously told her there was a guy with a shaggy beard and a handgun wandering around the woods in the middle of the night. My gate cam caught a pair of skunks having dirty skunk sex at like 2 AM. Guy walked up to my front windows, put his ear against it, then walked away. I see him around the neighborhood sometimes. Not sure what his deal is, but he hasn't come to my place again so far. I've got cameras downstairs that cover my living room, kitchen and front door, and one in my second closet where I have 2 large gun safes. Maintenance came in to clean and test the smoke detectors and change the AC filter. One of them opened the gun closet and started poking around at the keyboards on my safes. He tells the other guy, "I'm gonna figure out this code one day." The other guy was in my nightstand commenting on the condoms, lube and other assorted chemical aids. I simply called the police and met them here. The guy in my nightstand was wearing one of my watches. They both went to jail. This is almost one of the reasons I don't want a security camera. Basically nothing ever happens in my neighborhood. I don't want to have to accidentally record some demon walking on all fours with their joints going the wrong way just to see if the same guy dropped off my UPS packages every other day. Wasn't a security cam, but this one time my roommate set up a web camera in the living room which was motion activated because we had 4 dogs in the house and at least one of them was sitting on the carpet. 3 of the dogs were pretty average on intelligence, but one of them was too smart for her own good. So we all cruise out and do our thing. And upon returning we check the carpet and there is what appears to be a little chocolate smudge on the carpet. Of course we were all out together, so we knew no one would have made a poor attempt to clean up any accidents. So naturally we checked the video, and the culprit ended up being the smart dog. She does her business, and right as she's about to walk away she stops, turns her head and looks directly at the camera, and after a moment of realization, she turns her ass around and gobbles up her ick to remove the evidence. It started out being slightly creepy, but it ended up being really funny. I have external cameras with night vision all around my house. My family and I were on vacation several time zones west of our house. One night, right before I was about to go to bed, I got an alert and logged in to see what was going on. I saw a car pull into my driveway and 4 people get out, acting all sneaky and stealthy. It was well past midnight at my house, and this didn't look good. I called my wife and kids in to watch it. I was preparing to call the police in my hometown. We saw them all sneak away in toilet paper a neighbor's house. They then ran back to their car in my driveway and sped off. My family and I laughed so hard. It was a highlight of that vacation. Bit of backstory: I rent the upper floor of my best friend's house, so we see each other quite often and I use the kitchen and the washer and stuff like that. One day while we were at uni someone broke into the place. Nothing was stolen but the house was a disaster. So I check the footage of the camera we have out front. See the guy go in. Don't see him come out. Call the police. Check the entire house. Nowhere to be seen. I don't have neighbors to add to the strangeness of the situation. Well, turns up the guy was on the duck-in roof. He was up there a good week before we realized anything. He is now facing trail. Breaking the rules. But I caught something that ended up being surprisingly wholesome. I have a brick house, and the mailbox is bolted to it. Somehow one side managed to come loose. So it had been dangling for a couple of weeks since I just didn't have a chance to get to the hardware store. I get home from work one day and it was bolted back properly. I checked to see if there was a note or anything, but nope. On the one hand, I was really grateful, but on the other, was kind of spooked, wondering if I was totally losing it and maybe it had never come loose after all. Also, I've kind of half kidding half serious thought my house was haunted, so this definitely added to that feeling. A couple days later I remembered I have cameras and could check to see if they caught anything. Turns out an older guy with a tool belt just casually walked up, fixed my mailbox, and left. He wasn't there for more than 3 or 4 minutes. Eventually I was able to piece together that one of my neighbors was having some roofing work done and this was one of the workers. I guess he had just seen my mailbox dangling for a few days and decided since I wasn't making any moves to fix it, he would. I hadn't been living there for that long, and it really warmed my heart to know someone would go out of their way to perform a simple good deed for a stranger. We have Wiz cameras with motion detection. Every now and again I'll get an activity tagged motion or person and it's just a 5-second clip of absolutely nothing. Especially weird on a still night. Not creepy but actually funny. About a month ago at 2 AM, a hedgehog came and rolled around our yard destroying all the green grass in front of my porch. I'm a property manager, and one of the communities I worked at had cameras installed. One night, person in all black clothes with their hood up gets let in by a resident. Black clothes goes to elevator, goes up to a specific floor, then to a specific door, and knocks. Resident opens the door. Black clothes produces a pistol, and bang shoots him the face, and walks off. Back on elevator, out the same door, never looked up. Creepy AF. A neighbor came up and pressed his face into our door to look inside. I am a young woman and disabled, and was home alone at the time. His face print was still there when I looked. Ducking creep. Not me, but my mum. We're renting out this barn house from this couple who are living in Canada for a few years. They have CCTV in the office. One day, she saw a creepy old man who she never met before waving at her through the CCTV. She eventually found out he knew the people we were renting the house from and didn't realize they moved to Canada. But we were spooked for a while. Well, today I caught 2 random adult men in my backyard measuring the fence or something while I was home alone. As a girl, you could imagine all the scary scenarios going through my head. Luckily they left right when I saw them on the security cameras. Guess they were done measuring the fence, and I told my dad. Turns out it was just the neighborhood gardeners and they called my dad to let him know they were there. But no one thought to let me know they'd be here. Way to give me a heart attack. Another time, I caught some random woman also in my backyard, but this time, this creep was trying to look into the windows. I felt like my soul left my body when I saw her. She looked mad and she wasn't alone. Some guy was waiting in a pickup truck for her. She left. Never saw her again. My son started sleepwalking and having night terrors when he was around 11. Always looks odd to see him walking around in the middle of the night. So we have 2 cameras at back of my house. 3 people show up with horse masks on and spend probably 15 minutes pretending to be horses. Then left a small bag of meat with flowers in it. My wife was so freaked she didn't sleep for a week. Guy living inside of one of the broken down cars out by the barn at my parents' house during the winter. We live about 10 miles out from the closest town that has anything to offer and from there so many miles to any other town. He was likely a drifter or homeless and we honestly didn't do anything about it. Just kept mindful that he was there during the nights in case something shady ever went down, but nothing ever did. I think he really just needed somewhere to sleep that wasn't outside. It was surely still freezing cold, but better than the alternative. He left and never returned after winter passed. When it had been a few weeks since we saw him on the cameras at night, we went and looked inside of the car, saw so many empty cans of beanie weenies. Haha. I hope he managed to find his way onto another area that didn't turn him away or was able to get himself into a job and a real home. Finally one I can comment on. Haha. This happened about 3-4 years back. I was in this pretty short street, about 25 houses I'd say. We had recently set up cameras because we were having some really bad issues with this neighbor. Most people on the street knew each other. We'd all barbecue and party together. And we all collectively hated this family. Their son, who I will keep his name secret, was one nasty son of a bitch. He's pulled a knife out and pointed at me from 20 feet away or so. Tried to get his dogs, 2 big pit bulls, to attack me, and we were pretty sure he stole our quad. I won't divulge into that. I've already gotten far off track. But we set up the cameras solely because of him. So one night, he snuck out of his house and came over to ours. Had no clue why he was coming to our house, but whatever. He gets about halfway up our lawn, then stops, notices the cameras, and does some weird creepy smile thing where he tilted his head a bit. He ended up leaving and we decided not to do anything because we were moving very shortly anyway. Supposedly he's also moved, but out of state. Hope to never see that delinquent again. Had a Ring doorbell when I lived in South Florida. Kept getting motion notifications one afternoon but couldn't see anything. Finally saw what it was. A 6-foot gator chilling out in the entranceway. Thankfully he left before I got home. I put one of those $30 cube cameras in my car after my mentally unhinged co-worker put a nail under my tire. Instead I filmed myself driving down the highway for 5 minutes, having a conversation with myself about grey hair and buying a taser. Not creepy, but my dad has caught my mom slipping on ice while taking the garbage can up and down the driveway multiple times. He always emails the clips to me with the subject "Mom fail." Caught my mom's boyfriend physically abuse her, box her in with his body, mocking her for calling him a bully, etc. I had just woken up when it happened and didn't realize what went down until my mom showed me the video footage. This wasn't the first time he had done this and it's not the worst thing he had done. We're trying to get rid of him but we need a 30 days notice and a secure way to make sure this doesn't go down with a murder-suicide on our hands. I installed some security cameras at my place after my neighbor told me they thought they've been hearing someone walking around my yard at night. I scanned through the footage the very next morning and saw a guy come into frame wearing only boxers and laced up combat boots. He stood by my bedroom window, stared in for about 45 minutes then walked back out of frame. I was able to get a pretty good look at his face, and that's when I realized that I've been ducking sleepwalking. I have no idea how long it's been going on or where the duck else I've been at night, and that ducking terrified me. I honestly think I might have preferred seeing an actual intruder. My parents live just outside a town of about 400 people, so fairly remote. One morning they woke up and saw an alert from their motion activated camera that is placed to see the area outside their bedroom. I should mention that their bedroom has a sliding glass door with a screen door that they sometimes leave open on hot nights. The camera footage shows a cougar walk up and stop about 10 feet from that sliding glass door, and the worst part is the footage cuts off before the cougar leaves. Crappy cameras. My mom called me one afternoon from home and told me to take a look at her security camera. There was an absolutely ginormous bug just sitting on the ledge where the camera was. Didn't move a single inch. It was just sitting there. My mom and I were both losing our head because we didn't know what it was and we were afraid that it would somehow wreck the camera. It sat there for a good 15 minutes before it hopped away. We have no idea why the hell it decided to rest there, but duck that bug. My tenant coming inside while I wasn't home and snooping through my drawers until he found some money, and stealing it. Had his 8-month-old daughter in his arms the whole time. 2. Not me, but my friend, saw his brother's ex-best friend set his €30,000 Peugeot Classic on fire because his brother stole the friend's girl. The creepy thing was that the dude had makeup like the Joker and looked directly into the camera before lighting a fire, was caught the same night, and went to jail. The car was damaged, but was fixable, and my friend is still driving it around. Good friend of mine has a camera that also shoots treats for his dog. It notifies him of barking and people movements, can speak through it, record videos etc. He got a barking alert, logged in to find 2 complete strangers in his house, just chilling on his couch. He rushes home. No one is there. House is all locked up. Still can't figure it out. Not mine, but I read a story of a guy working security at a rail yard. One night on camera a train hit a deer, killing it next to the tracks, and a guy walked out of the nearby woods completely naked, got down on all fours and started eating it raw, just walked back into the woods after. You know that one XGO trailer in the beginning where the terrorists shot the cam in the entrance? Yeah, that's my house that happened. I have a paranoid neighbor with a collection for guns and he decided that we were getting in the way of his work. Yay, still scared after what happened. One night about 3 AM the dogs went crazy. Checked the cameras and there is this guy just sitting on a windowsill beside the front door. Wasn't being threatening or trying to break in. Just sitting and looking around. Called police non-emergency. They came and realized he was a neighbor. He was thinking our house was his job site and he was just waiting for the plumbers to finish. I am not sure if it was a weird ambient sleepwalk or one of the odd stories about UTIs or CO causing delusions. He got taken for medical evaluation and it appears got the treatment he needed. Ended up moving out a few months later after what looked like being in and out of the hospital to me. I installed a ring cam and lock on my gate as couriers and postmen kept leaving it open and my dogs would run down the street. Nothing too out of the ordinary for the first year. I just bought a solar panel for it as I always would forget to charge it. Installed it and let the solar panel charge up the camera from flat to see how much charge it would give the camera. Worked like a charm and in the low amount of sunlight it got in the morning during winter was more than enough to keep the camera going non-stop. Literally 2 days later I get home from work and my camera is missing. Ripped off the post and solar panel destroyed. Check the footage. Someone came up and ripped it from the post, put it in their pocket and walked off with it. However, the person that stole it was an ex-work colleague who looked directly into the camera and then stole it. Previous footage shows his car driving past the house and parking down the road. Haven't worked with a guy for over 2 years and I never told him where I lived. Anyway, now that guy has a criminal charge against him and I've got cameras and floodlights absolutely everywhere around my house. Our outdoor kitty had cancer and we didn't have the money to get her help. She wasn't in pain, but just quickly deteriorating. We made up a bed for her outside, gave her food and water, played with her favorite toys and said our goodbyes. We went off to bed and hoped she would go peacefully. The next morning, we woke up to her out of her bed. Frantically, we looked for her until we found her curled up underneath a shelf, cozy and tucked away, but she had passed. My dad had a security camera in the garage, so he looked at her last few moments of living. She got up from her bed, walked around, sat at the door and mewed for a bit. That part tore me up and slowly slinked under the shelf. About 2 minutes later, we see a brief glimmer and what looked like a sheer silk window curtain flowing in front of the camera. Now, I know that it wasn't an actual spirit or ghost, and it was just vapor and dust, but the fact that I had never seen that before, and how it was timed to coincide with her death. Came home from dinner one day, ducky covered, and there were feathers all over my lawn. Pulled up the security footage and a hawk had dive bombed whatever those feathers belonged to midair down to my lawn, then took off for its dinner. That was metal. Back when we didn't have gates on the driveways, I set up a game camera. I have a whole file called Weirdos in my yard. It's mostly Rondo people who look lost. One guy though drove into my side yard, sat there in his car for 20 minutes, backed almost out of the yard, waited, then drove back in, then eventually left. The game camera was because I caught people peeping in the windows again. We decided to upgrade. Massive gates across all the driveways stopped the weirdo creepers, but our new camera system and the 3 dogs. Tell me when anyone so much as slows down on the road by my house. With 12 cameras there's nowhere that isn't on video now. Camera hidden on the side of my house captured my boomer male neighbor walking around his house in the dark. Stop, pull his pants down and bend over. Then, a stream of brown gravy biscuit mix shot from his ass in the grass. Pulled his pants up and walked out of view. Not creepy, but caught 2 guys standing on my driveway firing shots into my neighbor's house across the street. A neighbor searching my trash can. Not super creepy, but we caught a bear chilling on our lawn. I saw a bear dragging a deer once. I live in the woods though. Okay, so true story. My building doesn't have cameras in the hallways, so I decided to buy Ring camera. A few hours after installing, someone walks up to one of my neighbor's doors, knocks on the door, no one answers. They then shove a piece of paper under the door and sets the piece of paper on fire, then takes off running. When we first installed a video security camera, I knew my husband was anxiously awaiting the first thing to trip the motion sensor and get recorded, sending him an instant notification on his phone. He went out for a beer, so I quickly put together an outrageous costume with a crazy headdress and did an eclectic dance past the camera, complete with a kazoo marching band song. If only I'd had a camera to view him at the bar as he spewed his beer with laughter. I came in to open the retail store one morning. Lights were on, radio was on, and the TV was on. There were beer cans in the bathroom trash and put out smokes on the floor. I went back to watch the security tapes and the manager brought a woman in at midnight and they smoked and drank and then went into the bathroom together and came back out with less clothes on. Needless to say, the manager didn't have a job by noon that day. We caught the neighbor going into our backyard to pick up cigarette butts. She lined them up on the step going to the side door, then complained that our son was throwing cigarettes in her bushes trying to burn her house down. Another time she was grooming the bushes along our driveway but in her yard. Then she called the woman from across the street to go in our backyard to look at the new gate my husband had just put in. Lastly, police came banging on our door after midnight, before the pandemic curfews, asking if our cameras picked up the shooting down the street. No, sad to say, we didn't have anything that would help them. Just last week there was a dude jerking off in my front yard.